Yeah, there's a lot of Iraq War veterans coming
Good.
through here. And Pat Carney, of course,
Oh yeah.
that's what he was. And he's listening, trying to get him on December 3rd
Oh,
show.
nice.
He changed position from veteran outreach for the VA to now he's running the suicide awareness.
Very good. That's amazing. You know.
He's been through a lot. He lost both his mom and dad within a month of each other.
Wow, that's tough. That is tough.
Yeah.
It's something I deal with. It probably has some things to do with my service or PTSD, but I haven't spoke. God forgive me, my mother in probably 6 months.
I do.
And my father,
She came in at tax time for me,
as she should.
and I take care of I think your sister,
Elizabeth.
Frank and Elizabeth.
Yeah, sure.
And I can remember back when you were really struggling, they were all pulling for you.
Sure. And none of it goes unnoticed. And I'm more than grateful for when I had my issues with PTSD.
Ready.
Yeah, when you're ready, we could elaborate.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Streetlight people. Don't stop believing. Hold on. Streetlight people. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling.
Welcome to Intel Studios Veterans Matter live stream broadcast, the first live stream broadcast for veterans in the tri-state New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania areas. And now, your host, Veterans Advocate Mike Merlino.
Good afternoon, and we welcome all of our audience. And it is our hope that today's broadcast will assist or enlighten you, and at the very least, let you know that there is help for you if needed. If you want friends to participate in our broadcasts, they need to go to our website, Veterans Matter NJ. That's Veterans Matter NJ altogether.com. Click on the Our Shows circle, then click on subscribe. You can also go directly to YouTube, hit the search button, type in Intel Studios live stream, and then scroll down the options until you see Veterans Matter. Our phone lines are available throughout the broadcast, and I'll let our audience know when we begin taking calls. The phone number is 609-798-4475, and please be patient as we take the calls in the order that they appear. And this is got to be one of the most anticipated shows for me. I'm sort of like in the family with my guest.
Sure.
At least I consider him family.
Of course.
And he's a United States Army and Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. I'd like to welcome to Veterans Matter Sergeant Vince Hamburg. Vince, welcome to Veterans
Yes,
Matter.
thank you, Mike. I appreciate the invite. And as you said, this is, been highly anticipated. I remember you invited me and my brother-in-law, Matt, and he was a Marine, still is, right? And I think it was around 2010 or 11. You had invited both of us, and I was still on active duty, and I couldn't make it for whatever the reason. And I guess all in a higher power. It was meant to be that way for whatever the reason was. Well, I'm here today, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and Vince, Quite a story. But one of the great things was you come from a veteran family. Your grandfather served in the Marine Corps, was a Korean War veteran, was on our show, and for me, it was the most unbelievable story about
Sure.
the Korean War. I mean, here was the man who was up in the mountains where it was 50 degrees below zero.
I know.
And
What could I complain about? After that, I've heard his stories, and I don't think I've heard anywhere close to all of them. And many hours of listening, because we lived together for a long part of my life.
right,
And there was a lot of things he didn't talk about, but when he did, it was never a dull moment. Always exciting. Part of the reason why I joined the service was because of my grandfather. And I did not a poem, but I guess a paragraph or so while I was in basic training, and told my drill sergeants, why did I join the service? And I don't remember it word for word, but I'll tell you, my grandfather was my hero. Knowing some of the stories, not all the stories, I just wanted to be that. And, I joined the Army, so where'd I go wrong? As opposed to the Marines, as he always says.
Vince, I'm going to take you back a bit.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, all the way back to high school.
Sure.
I don't know your history in high school, but I want to ask you, back then, did you know that you wanted to be in the military then?
I did. And be completely honest with you, I couldn't join the service because I had a juvenile record and for some time. And then they did the troop surge in Iraq, and they opened back up my ability to join. So that's when I did. I had, I forget what the charge was, but it was, from fighting, in high school. Boys will be boys. And it was really minor, and nothing came of it, but it was enough to stop them from allowing me to be recruited. And so after high school, I got a job at the gym, Island Gym here in Egg Harbor Township, overnight, working out, and I was running into the recruiters that were here from Northfield, and they were persistent. And then eventually they said, don't even worry about that old charge. They're making waivers for you to get in now. So I said, let me do it. So in high school, I did know, but I wanted to strive to be a lot more than what I signed up to be, as I thought as a kid, as a child,
Well, let me ask you a question, Vince. You're thinking about the military. Where were you on September 11th?
September 11th, I actually don't think I was in school that day. My father's mother, she, with dementia, God rest her soul, passed away 2013. But she was living with us. She couldn't live on her own anymore. And, my father was away on a trip. So I stayed home from school that day. I stayed with my grandmother. He was in Oklahoma, where I went to basic training. And I was sitting on the couch watching TV, and then the TV was interrupted. It was early, 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. And my grandmother was preparing breakfast in the kitchen. And that's when we saw the second plane hit. And being involved in the fire department for so long, as a young child, that hit home for me. So that was enough. And I said I had to do something about it. And I couldn't do anything about it in the fire department, being a local volunteer. They only took so many volunteers up north.
Right.
But the time was coming. And it just happened to be in 2005 that they said, okay.
So you end up, how old were you when you finally got into service?
I think I was 22 when I was pursuing. And when I was overseas, I believe I was 24.
All right, so you go in the Army. Where was your basic training?
Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Okay. And you end up in Iraq.
I had no idea. Wherever I was naive, I joined for school. I was struggling to pay for college, in accounting, nonetheless. And working at the pizzeria or the gym wasn't really paying for all the bills. So I had to do something bigger. With the GI Bill being 40,000 or 38 at the time, that was some incentive. I got a bonus for signing on to be a truck driver. Had no idea that in 2005, that truck drivers were a majority of the casualties over in Iraq. I had no idea. You know, I was looking at the end goal: college, education, jobs. You know, and it didn't end up happening to be that way.
So, you're over in Iraq. And I've had a really good friend of mine, is Lieutenant Sam Consul.
Okay.
He actually led the troops to find the IEDs.
Sure.
So, of course, occasionally they found them by getting their
Hopefully.
vehicles blown up.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to find them that way.
So, I want you to go, if you don't mind. You're there, and you're a truck driver.
Sure.
And you know what the dangers are.
You do. You're
And-
trained for it, but you don't train for it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
What's that feeling like?
Well, you know, after the initial landing and being attacked on your first day, you know, mortars coming in, small arms fire, that was a big eye-opener. Nothing you train during your training at Fort Dix or Fort Bliss, wherever you might have trained at to go overseas, they don't train you for that first interaction, that first contact. And it was probably the scariest part of my whole deployment, because here I'm green, stepping off a C-130 with, you know, a portion of the crew, not even everybody, and we're receiving small arms fire. Now, we don't even have, you know, our full combat ammunition load yet. You know, so it's mortars and gunfire.
What year was that?
That was 2005. So I arrived in Iraq, I believe it was September of 2005. Or excuse me, 6. I got to jog my memory a little bit.
Now, you're, how many months were you actually deployed there?
I was deployed together, overseas was 11 months altogether in country. But we had a 6-month, because I was detachment 1 in our unit, we had 6 months of training before the rest of our company had been assigned to us. We were basically a company put together to go overseas to do a laundry mission that turned out to be force protection. So we were reclassified to get a line number in a company to go overseas to do a different mission than we were assigned to do at the time. You know?
Now, you were in an area of Iraq, pronounce that Mosul?
Mosul or Mosul, yeah.
Okay. All the years when Commander Bill Butler and I did Veterans Matter radio
Sure.
show, we used to do a segment of our show where we would play taps.
Okay.
And do a roll call of
Sure.
their casualties, and it seemed like Mosul was one of the worst places.
Sure.
To be, right?
Well, so I got my orders from the president, you know, like every other individual that gets their Title 10 orders. And that came in 2005, probably about 2 months after I got out of basic training. You know, here you go. So found a new unit, got reassigned, met a whole bunch of new people. You got to get comfortable. But never, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Well, just you're in an area where the
Mosul.
casualties are
Sure.
just enormous.
So 2005 and 2006, if you remember, we did a troop surge, and Fallujah, Ramadi, Mosul, the outskirts of Baghdad, you know, outside of the green zone, they had all these troops, which is why I got a waiver to go in the military, to go in these dangerous areas and train the Iraqi police, Iraqi National Guard, to take back what was theirs. You know, Iraqi Special Forces. They were all surrounded us. But when we got over there, the violence was very high. IEDs or EFPs, if you're familiar, explosively formed projectiles. They were very dangerous, hard to intercept, you know, or find. And we had a road right outside of our base in Merez East and Merez West called IED Alley, and I'm sure every base had theirs. There was a lot of casualties.
Now, I had heard early in our radio show from the guys that came back that the Humvees weren't really equipped then to take an IED.
Not at all. You know, being so that I went through the service initially as a truck driver, 88 Mike, they had soft skin. You know, they had the flappy doors with the, not the vinyl, but whatever that soft skin is, and they were really just putting their vests over the doors at the time I went through truck driving school to stop small arms fire or like 7.62 rounds. Your vest would stop that, but they didn't have anything to defeat in a Humvee the IED or the anti-tank mines. They were using anything they could at that point to try to beat our vehicles, and they were doing a good job of it before we had our up armor Humvees. And then that's when they started showing up when we got to country. A lot of those newer Humvees, which they were 1026s, still weren't beating IEDs, but they were doing a lot better than what they have out now, before, the 998 Humvees. So there was a big jump in the armor because of a different war, different fighting style, you know, the guerrilla style, but it was mostly for our logistics. So it was scary, it was intimidating.
Now, the normal person sitting back here, all they ever see on television is, of course, the worst part of war. Our men and women going into places where people are getting killed.
Sure.
But there was a humanitarian side to the war also, where we were building schools and roadways and hospitals.
It was a tough time. Yeah, being on force protection, I dealt with a lot of the civilian population in Iraq, along with a lot of the military. On my off time, I got stuck at a front gate, you know, that separated the city from our base. So at times that was tough too, you know. And the main purpose of us being there was allegedly for humanitarian, you know, but we're getting shot at every day. I don't look at that as humanitarian, you know. It's different. But I'll tell you, that is what I like to reflect on the most is, you know, the times that we were walking down the roads and children and kids were playing. And yes, it's intimidating. Yes, is that a threat? It could be. But you kind of have to, you look past that a little bit. They're still people. They're still just like us. You know, they're hungry. They want sugar foods. They want to play on swing sets. They want to read books. They want their parents to read to them. So having that empathy really helped. I was never engaged directly, I want to say. I didn't have a target personally. They liked me, the Iraqi people, the Turkish people, the Syrian people. So you have that rapport that you build over time. As long as you treat them well, you know, when it came to intelligence, they would run to me, you know, for a soda or for a donut, you know, and it's something that we would throw out, but I would save for the children or the people waiting to bring our fuel or our food, the truck drivers with their families. You know, that little thing, they'll remember for the rest of their life. A donut. You know, that American, he gave me a donut, you know, and brought tears to the dad's eye. Like, they've been waiting outside of our base to get on for a week with nothing to eat. And a donut or a soda, you know, is all the difference. And you know, they're looking for my face next time they came by our gate, you know, not our lieutenants, not our sergeants. They were looking for us. Hey, you know, I want to deal with this guy because he treated me like a human, you know, not like an Iraqi or an insurgent, you know.
You know, obviously, you come back from war and all that you've been through, and you come back here to the States, you separate from service.
Sure.
And the people who you were friends with before you went in, family, it's different.
Yeah.
You're a completely different individual.
Yeah, if you don't mind, you know, I was previously married. You know, I've been remarried since, as you may know. Very happy, you know, on my end. I can't speak for my wife, but but there's difficulties still. I was divorced. I have a son with a prior wife, and he was born while I was overseas. I was not allowed.
You were married?
I was married before I left. in 2006.
And that takes such a toll on the family. People don't understand that it's not just
Not
the
at all.
soldier
Yeah.
that's sacrificing.
Sure.
The family sacrifice might not be as hard on them, but it's still
It is in a different way. I agree. It might not be physically hard, but it's emotionally tolling. And I dealt with that, on more than one level, one occasion. But the family, I didn't see it when I was overseas, but I had to do time too, partially because of my service and my ignorance and negligence, so on and so forth. But I saw it then, what I was doing, directly to my family. And it can only be similar in the service because you're getting torn away, you're getting pulled away. Yes, I volunteered to do it, but honestly, I was really ignorant in the whole war thing. I had no idea what war was about. I mean, we trained for it. We had fun. To an extent, I made the most of it. I paid attention because I knew it was life or death matters. But I enjoyed doing it because I was interested. I was interested in staying alive. So anyway, my family, I saw them the second time, and I was home while I was leaving. I paid attention, and they really struggled with me being pulled away.
Yeah, back then, I don't think the cell phones and the being able to have that, what do you call it, FaceTime.
Sure, no.
I don't think it existed then.
Well, they had, USO had trailers in most bases, not the remote bases so much, but the big bases, Mosul, Marez East, Marez West. It was a fairly large base with 5,000 soldiers at any time. It was also an airfield where we brought logistics in, and then we distributed it around northeast, northwest Iraq, anywhere from Jordan to Syria to Afghanistan. So all of northern Iraq was basically run out of Mosul, when it came to supplies, ammunition, so on and so forth. Very, very busy. And we had a few of those trailers on base, and there was always a line wrapped around the back of it, but it's not like a Wawa line. People aren't trying to cut in front of each other, Everybody wants to call home, and we're all on the same page. So, hey, we'll hold your spot, or we'll let you know when the phone's open, so on and so forth. But after I got my orders, I trained up, and I got married with my now ex-wife. She was pregnant right before I left. It was unintentional. To this day, I believe she thinks it was intentional. My son was a godsend. It wasn't expected, but whatever the case is, we're estranged now. But during that time, I had saw a Turkish truck driver being forced protection, and we would confiscate things if they weren't allowed. They were allowed one cell phone, this or that, but the guy, instead of confiscating, he offered to sell me a cell phone with a SIM card that used Turkish satellites. And I was able to call home more often than not to check on my wife that was pregnant. And there was good calls and there was bad calls.
Well, your son was born while you were overseas.
Yes.
Right?
So about 6 months into my deployment, my son Vincent was born March 14th, 2007. And I was unfortunately unable to come home because I was mission essential. One of the very few truck drivers in the company, a quartermaster company at that,
Right.
and nobody wanted to volunteer to drive. So here I was, and we really were at the very bare minimum as a unit to even be deployed in the first place. So to lose 2 guys on leave, it would really disrupt our scheduling.
Vince, being a truck driver, and I had a couple guys in that told about this. You weren't on the roadways; you were like in these canal type, and you tried to stay. Wasn't there always a vehicle ahead of you that kind of swept for ID, so you wanted to stay in his tracks, right?
During our troop surge, I'm sure there's different perspectives from all different parts of Iraq. Where we were, we mostly operated at night, unless you were, so our logistics convoys for supplies, material, mail, etc., they were usually done at night. And that was because during Blackout Drive, we couldn't get engaged as easily. makes sense on a tactical level. But it was really hard to navigate, with night vision goggles on, no vehicle lights, besides your blackout drive, which is very tiny lights that you can't see from a side profile. You'd have to be really up close. Once you start kicking that dust up in Iraq, you can't see anything unless you're 5 foot off their bumper. So it was very challenging. And then in the beginning of the IEDs, EFPs, they wanted you to drive 70 miles an hour, 70, 80. Now with a bobtail and an 80,000 pound tractor trailer, you're 70 miles an hour. It's really hard to get to that. One instance, while it's on my mind, my first convoy that I did, I was left behind. Most of the convoy passed me, and then I had a strip map drawn in pencil, a backpack radio, not a vehicle radio, that the battery was dead and I couldn't reach the rest of the convoy. It was completely. It was me, two staff sergeants, doing a supply mission, and we were just lost. And driving through the mountains and the valleys, going to a base called Key West, and we were just left behind. Left behind. The whole convoy, full tankers full of JP8 or jet fuel, passing me with my little bobtail or LMTV, which is one of their newer family vehicles, or family of. I got a brain fart. Excuse me. So FMTV or LMTV, a light mobility vehicle or family of this vehicle. So the flat front, it's got the tractor trailer hook up in the back or a fifth wheel, and those things were junk. They just didn't pull any weight. So I'd get 15 miles an hour at best when I was climbing a slight pitch in the mountain. And anything higher than that, it was like 5 or 10. Any perfect situation for an ambush. And it was an area that was known for ambushes.
How many people on your truck?
There was 3 of us, and we all had our basic combat load. I didn't have a crew serve weapon on the top of the truck or anything. So keep your combat locks on and just hope for the best. That was it, my strip map, luckily I caught up to the convoy eventually, but they were sitting outside of the base when I did. Our destination, Oh, it's like, thank you. I appreciate it. So, it's not all textbook. It's not all. There's definitely, situations like that were far from perfect. And by luck or chance or a higher power, we made it from A to B.
Now, you watch a movie like American Sniper. Right?
Sure.
Right. I mean, when you watch that, how much of that is real? I mean, when you think about the snipers,
I'm with you.
People in that position.
I have a hard time watching a lot of military movies, because a lot of it is juiced up, for the audience. And then there's a lot of it that is, you look at it, only a veteran might know, but that would never happen because you're familiar with how your weapons react. Or how your vehicles react, or an airplane, or even a helicopter. Like, it's impossible. That's all for show, So
Right.
It was hard for a long time to watch any military style movie or video or documentary. Documentaries aren't so bad because that's more truth to it, I believe. But some of these, it's just amazing how much they could add on to it, for the audience. But and I'm picking it apart, so it was never fun to watch with. I'm like, oh, you can't do that. My wife's just sitting there just trying to enjoy a movie, Let her believe what she believes, but I'm like, that can't happen, and this won't happen, and this weapon doesn't react that way, so on and so forth. But
One of the things the lay person back here was hearing was the extreme temperatures.
sure.
Did you deal with that?
We
where
had
you were?
both. So in Mosul, where I spent a majority of my time, it was, I want to say, comparison to New Jersey weather. You had all 4 seasons. Summer was a little bit longer. Winter was a little bit shorter, but we saw snow and a lot of mud. Snow and a lot of mud. During the summertime, where we were in northern Iraq, 105, on average, I would say during the summer, 103. But you get accumulated to that. When I was in Texas or Fort Sill wasn't too bad, but Texas, there wasn't any grass in sight. It was all stone on their on their base. And if grass was growing, we'd do police call. We'd go pick the weeds, and that's because of the extreme heat. But where I was, I can compare it to Texas when it comes to like the summertime and the heat. But it was hard at first. But once you get past that couple weeks, like Kuwait was a lot hotter. You don't do anything during the day. It's 120, in an air-conditioned tent. So all of our training operations in Kuwait, before we actually entered Iraq, it was all done at night. And that was still 90, 95 degrees in the middle of the night, midnight.
Just give us a little break. I'm going to play this song in honor of your service to the Army.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Veterans Matter live stream broadcast. This is Mike Merlino, your host. I'm here with Sergeant Vince Hamburg, United States Army and Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. And we're stuck over there in the heat.
That's right.
Of Iraq. Vince, you come home from all that, and it's a difficult transition, right?
It was. I did come home, and I was brought back up on orders. I did AGR, which is Active Guard or Reserve, and I was brought back on orders for Operation Enduring Freedom, at which I became an instructor at Fort Dix, having a son that was just about a year old now. I figured, let me take this tour. It's a tour at Fort Dix as an instructor, as a military police officer, where I was reclassified to become a force protection or a range instructor at Fort Dix. It was one of the mobilization stations for Army, Navy, and the Air Force, not the Marines.
So because you were active during that time, you're also an Operation Enduring Freedom veteran.
Correct.
Also,
They're both
right?
on my DD-214, wow. And it's great. Even though I didn't make it into Afghanistan officially, I do have orders for it.
Ever think you were going to end up in Afghanistan?
I did. I wanted to go. And honestly, God forgive me, but why I struggled with my first wife, they had a thing online that was just introduced during this troop surge, and it was a volunteer button right above my Army Knowledge Online email. It said volunteer above it, and if you clicked on it, it'd be OIF, OEF, or some other operation that I could just one-click volunteer, and they'd pick me up like that, as long as they had a slot for me to go into for my rank and my job duties. So I would hover over top of that with my mouse pointer if me and my wife would start arguing. Like, I'll go, I'll volunteer, and boy, did I want to. One thing that kept me home was my son. Little Vince or Vince the second. I wasn't mature, though, at that time. In my head, I lived through war, and I felt like I deserved everything. I came home with that mentality, but I really tried my best to be a good father and provide. So I never volunteered to go to Afghanistan like I wanted to. But I did stay close to home and stayed on active duty until they said I couldn't re-enlist anymore because of my injuries that I sustained during, training.
Vince, if you don't want to go there, we can skip this time.
Sure.
Tonight, but, I'll never forget this time. I'm married to your, let's
Aunt,
your
yeah, officially my ex Aunt Vicky.
right.
Right. So,
And, right, and so
but she's my Aunt Vicky, and
Right.
you're Uncle Mike, right?
And you know what, Vince? I became really, really friendly with your mom.
Sure.
She worked with
Vicky, yeah.
and I would
Longer
stop-
than I've been alive, 30-some years, you know.
I would stop at ShopRite daily.
Sure.
You know? And really, I think the world of your mom.
Me too.
And well, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. But Vince, there was a time, and Vicky came home and told me about your struggle.
Sure. Which time?
Back when you were using your training from home with the sniper rifle.
Oh, of course, of course.
And I happened to be doing this show at the time, and I was dealing with a Marine veteran
Okay.
who barricaded himself in a home in
Sure.
Atlantic City.
Ventnor, was it Ventnor?
Yeah, and, no, it was Chelsea.
Okay, I'm familiar with the situation. Yeah.
And he was very lucky that the police officer that was ahead of that unit at the time was able to get him out alive.
Okay.
Now, I know you went through this. I know you were suffering horribly from some of the effects of the war.
Sure.
And I had heard this when they said that you were shooting at the police.
Allegedly.
I had heard that you really couldn't have been shooting at him because you were a pretty good
Expert. I was
expert.
expert across the
And
board.
if you wanted
yes.
to hit somebody, you would have.
Yeah,
But Vince, it was a terrible time for you.
it was.
And your mom had come to me, and I was able to hook her up with a really, really good local attorney.
That's correct.
And we were all concerned because we had seen what happens to our men and women when they're not taken care of by the VA.
Yes.
And you paid your debt, but when I look at where that brought you to and where you are today, I am just so proud of what you become today.
Thank you, Mike.
Really,
Thank you.
you've really overcome a lot of what the war does to our men and women, and I'm just thrilled to I know you've gone through some horrible injuries and multiple surgeries.
Yes, yes.
Vince, I really feel part of the family.
Yeah, and you are.
And
And I hope you feel the same way, And I know that you do, and I appreciate that very much.
when you have the type of injuries you've had, and I see the scars, I've seen what you've had to go. I mean, it took you a month of healing just to be able to come here and sit and do the show.
More than that. I technically, I should be out in a chair or in bed until January 2nd after having surgery, a fusion on my neck. It was September 19th was my surgery. September 19th. And I'm still in a lot of pain from the surgery. And it just takes time when it comes to nerves, Hopefully that'll be my last neck surgery, and we could focus on my thoracic spine and my lower lumbar spine, which I've had a surgery on my lower lumbar. Was very minor at the time, but now I need another one. It's going to be fusion for my lower back and a fusion for my thoracic spine as well. So they're pretty major surgeries where I could be down for multiple months at a time with recovery. And it's like, didn't I recover enough? Here I'm actually starting to work on things that I should have a long time ago, partially because of myself, but partially because of the VA and their policies too. Right. This is, I served overseas in 2006. I was injured 2007 while I was still serving. 2008 was another injury, and 2009 I started my claims with the VA. I was still on active duty at the time, and I didn't even get a rating. I think my first rating was 10% until 2011. You know, and that's kind of discouraging. I couldn't get medication when I needed it. They were real quick to hand out any Percocet or Flexerol for muscle relaxer, like real quick. But then when it's time to, you know, simmer down, I just went to the bottle. It was easier.
You know, and it's unbelievable. You should bring that up. Going back to that time, 2010, 2011, I had met a Vietnam vet. His name is Noel Cook.
Okay.
And Noel, a lot of people think that he may have been CIA at one time. I don't know. Great Vietnam veteran and good man. He was actually, Obama took office in 2008, and we were already having a terrible time at Walter Reed with our warrior transition.
I remember,
units.
and it was real dirty
and just like you said, all they were doing was pushing the pills.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're drinking. And so what they hired Noel Cook to go to Walter Reed, figure out what was going on.
Yes, I've read about this.
So he did. He goes there, he does his report, and of course the report is negative. He was being honest, and this is what our men and women were going through, and they fired him because of it.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is a shame, because when you talk about that time in your life where, you know, just doing pills, and you end up with an alcohol problem, that really, you would think we had learned our lesson from our Vietnam vets, and we really hadn't at the time.
Yeah,
but you've come a long way.
So has a lot of our treatment, you know, and understanding of PTSD is part of that. 22 a day, it's part of that, you know. There's a lot of outreaches now. Families are more aware. Back, you know, before, you know, when I came home from Iraq, it was my problem. I was told that by my ex, that this is what you signed up for, you have to take care of it. So I would attempt, Mike, I attempted to take care of it, and the VA was almost, at that time, 2009, 10, 11, and as far as I could remember going into 2013, we struggled with getting appointments. I couldn't see, if I struggled, you know, or started to struggle, and I said I need to make an appointment, I would try to make an appointment. You couldn't get in for 2 or 3 months to a mental health appointment. And at that time, I was going to Philadelphia as my primary doctor, and all my VA was taken care of in Philadelphia. I wasn't part of South Jersey yet. And the closest Jersey VA was, I think, East Orange. So Philadelphia is where I would go. And 2012 and 13 was a big transition for the VA. We had an incident locally where somebody had taken their own life, and I believe they set themselves on fire, a veteran, unfortunately, here in Atlantic County. And it was that event that I think it opened the eyes of this district or this VA's, like, we need to do something. And they started working. And at that point, I had my incident with Hamilton Township Police Department, where I had shot a vehicle and I had gone away. And I stayed up with it because I was sober. I followed everything I could with the VA. I read about other veterans that had similar issues or were deployed to similar areas just to make sure that I was okay, you know. But the VA has come a long way since 2013, when all these issues started arising. People were being seen, but they weren't being seen, you know, to cover their own butt, whatever it was. It's not acceptable. But we've come a long way, the VA, veterans, the service that they've gotten, but it still needs a lot of work. Like, I deal with this daily, with my surgeries, with my mental health, with my appointments. Like, I got an appointment that dropped for no reason. It was set for January with my primary, but they didn't notify me. I looked on my scheduling and it was gone. And this has happened more than once. So they still need a lot of work.
Do you do anything with our local clinic?
Yes, this is under Wilmington. So Wilmington is the mother VA for
Right.
our outpatient clinics here, and this one across the street in Northfield's been great to me. Them inside the office, but the VA administration, I can't say the Wilmington thing. The ball gets dropped all the time. So there's a lot of policies that still need, reconditioning, whether it's appointments or other matters. You need somebody to oversee that. Real quick, I had issues with my appointments, disability, since I couldn't work any longer, and they just changed my primary care, and it wasn't this Northfield office; it was Delaware, Wilmington's office. And for what? I had an appointment the following day, and it was just gone, and I needed to go there for paperwork, and it's hard enough to get an appointment, and it's not something I could do over the phone. So I really had to be there, and it was just canceled for no reason. And then I was assigned a new primary. So unfortunately, what I did, and I hate doing this, I'm not really a public person at all. I'm really reserved. I stay to myself. I've isolated a lot from everyone, even my own family. But I tagged Wilmington VA, and then it was addressed. It was addressed after I used Facebook. I'm not a social media person so much to post my whole life and everything on there, but it got me and my wife so upset that they're just taking it upon themselves to reorganize my medical so it was a tough time right there, and it just realized, like, hey, this is not perfect. It still needs a lot of work, and it's never going to be perfect. So
Right.
lower
And-
my expectations.
Any government bureaucracy is going to be a problem. But I would say this: it's hopefully very soon. We've had a guy on our shows. He's John Baronato. He's
Okay.
actually overseeing the construction of There's going to be a new clinic in
Uh,
Northfield shortly.
Yes,
They bought all the property
next to
demo.
it, I believe.
But one of the things, the problems they didn't foresee is they're right on Route 9.
Of course.
So now they're dealing with Northfield County and state.
Yes.
And the Department of Transportation.
Sure,
and-
sure.
So nothing simple. But, it took a United States Navy veteran
Okay.
that needed help on a weekend, went to the clinic
Sure.
here in Northfield, and there was no help available, so he set himself on fire and killed himself.
Okay, yeah, this is a
Charles Ingram.
that's
in
an
the
incident
States
that-
Navy.
familiar with. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a horrible thing that finally lit a fire under their butt, and a lot changed. But you're right; it's still not up to par, and it's really a shame because we are great at preparing our men and women to go to war.
Yes.
We are just horrible bringing them home.
I'll give you a quick rundown of what it was like coming home. It was almost as traumatic as landing in Mosul. I came off of a C-5 jet at McGuire Air Force Base, and my wife at the time, my son, which was about 9 months or 10 months old, somewhere in there, my mother, and I think Valerie, my sister, they were waiting on Fort Dix for me to come off the plane. We got on a Bluebird bus on McGuire's tarmac, and then came over to Fort Dix at the chapel, and we were let off the bus, and I had it was 6 months old, plopped in my arms. I still have my service weapon with me, my 249 I'm carrying, and a backpack full of dirty clothes from Kuwait, never washed, smelling real good. But that, I felt good that way, honestly. I felt that's where I belong. And now I have this unknown matter in my arms that I have no idea what to do with my son, and it was traumatic because I didn't know what to do. I was nervous. I missed the birth. I couldn't be there. Nobody would let them record anything for the birth of my son because of privacy, so on and so forth. So I missed it completely. And that hurt me coming home because I didn't know how to act. I avoided it, really. And that's basically when I started drinking, just to cover up those anxious feelings that I didn't feel at war, but I felt at home, and I think that was kind of like being away for 5 years, sitting on a bunk, reading and thinking to myself, not only saved my life, but gave me a lot of time to reflect on what I did or the mistakes I made and the mistakes that were made around me to get me where I was, which was in prison. Excuse me. So it was just as tough coming home as it was going overseas. You know?
I don't. And I'm in the same boat. It's hard to comprehend. I've sat here with numerous Iraq, Afghanistan, war veterans, guys that have been in places where our people here have no idea that our military
Sure.
is in Africa fighting.
Yeah.
We don't know everything.
So the last time I read a book about statistics in our military, we were occupying somewhere near, it was like 205 countries, 205 or more. If I could be, don't quote me, but it was an extraordinary amount out of 290 countries or 300, wherever we are. My social studies aren't all up there.
Right.
So we occupied probably 98% of the countries in the world. Somehow, some way, we had boots on the ground for one reason or another in that country.
Let me ask your opinion on something. I have a really good friend of mine. You might even know him because he's from Mays Landing. He's Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Batchinger.
The name sounds familiar. I'm not linking a face with it. I could have crossed paths, but
He spent many, many years in Afghanistan.
okay.
And he befriended the Afghanistan families to help the Americans with
Intelligence,
interpretation and all that,
sure, okay.
interpreters and stuff. And Glenn is a super guy. Matter of fact, today he leads the effort in northern Italy of getting the refugees from
Wow.
Ukraine
Sure. What an amazing feat.
settled there. And when he heard about what happened in Afghanistan at the end,
Yes.
where 13 American soldiers were killed, and I forget how many billions of dollars of equipment was left
Abandoned.
behind. What does that feel like? I know you weren't in Afghanistan.
No,
but
not-
you.
But our deployments, the train up to go over, to invest your time and your own, my heart really, kept me there. I could have left. I could have walked off. I could have done a lot of things, but that's not why I was there, So knowing that we pull out in such an aggressive manner, one should have been done a long time ago. First off, if you ask me, because look at where we're at now. Where are they at? Did we do anything? We might have for the time being, but honestly, they're probably worse off now than they were before we even came there. Minus the weapons and
Right.
our intelligence, the other things that we gathered while we were there. But to hear that, what about everybody that did pass? That didn't come home, and you're able just to get up and leave everything like that. It's frustrating. Not only probably for those people that depended on us, but for the veterans too. I feel like Iraq, we invested so much time to bring the schools right, to train their personnel, to hear while I was away that the Islamic State had retaken Mosul made me angry. Does it affect me directly? No, not really. What do I care? I live in New Jersey. I don't live Merez East, Merez West anymore, but it kind of hit home. Like I have some equity over there. I put something down there that will last forever. And to the people I talked to today, my interpreters, Some of them are actually in the service now. A Turkish interpreter that we had assigned to our squad is now, he was based out of Fort Drum the last time I checked. It was a Turkish interpreter that spoke Arabic as well. He joined the service, got all his stuff, and was stationed at Fort Drum for the past 2 years. And he worked with me and a battle buddy of mine, Brodney. And to see that's where he is today, I know me and Brodney were doing something right because he's a successful soldier now. So that investment, never goes away. Those faces and what you did to help doesn't go away. And just to up and leave, it's like I feel like that's how they do us here sometimes. Just up and leave. Like, it is what it is. The veterans are just the veterans. We'll give them what they need, bottle feed them, give them their disability, and let them be on their merry way. But that's not the problem. It's not the money. It's not the injuries all the time. There's a lot of other things that aren't talked, the mental aspect of it.
Right. And the morning after this all took place in Afghanistan, Glenn texted me.
Sure.
Begging me to reach out to Congressman Van Drew.
Okay.
He gave me the names of the 2 families that were stuck in Afghanistan now, and try to get our congressman to get in touch with the State Department. But
Sure.
it couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And how many of those Afghanistan families were just murdered because of their relationship with the Americans? Just very sad. And it's another aspect of, how do you trust America down the line when they do that to people who help them in a war effort? And to me, this administration today leaves a lot to be desired.
Of course.
What they're doing for our veterans. We have such a divided country today. That,
After serving, it's sad.
during the Obama administration, I had a commander from the Navy sitting across from me, and how the morale was so bad in the Navy was just depleted. And we're getting there again today.
Sure.
I think, I read something online where the Marine Corps is the only branch that they've been able to maintain their
Numbers.
level.
Oh, yeah.
It's really sad of what's happening. And when I talked to our veterans, sat here with Lieutenant Glenn, trying to remember Doug Satterfield.
Okay.
He was a brigadier general in charge in Iraq to find the weapons of mass destruction that put us there.
Okay.
And when he talks about it today, he thinks that President Bush got a bad rap, that although there may not have been nuclear warheads, they found catches of chemical warfare, chemical
Sure.
bombs, which
Sure.
are as lethal. It might not take out a city, but it can
Of course. Well, look at, I'm not saying that this is one way or another, but look at COVID. You see how fast that goes? From one side of the world to the other. It doesn't take much,
Right.
biological, chemical. Thank God there wasn't anything nuclear that we came across, but
Right.
The danger was there.
And when you become a victim of our politicians, it really, and that's what I think's happened to a lot of our veterans today. You look back, Vince, of every base you were on over
Sure.
in Iraq, every one of them had a burn pit, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
every
that's what
single
you-
person that served, there is like
I
a
could im-
ticking time bomb.
When
of
is it going to
when
happen?
this is going to affect
Yeah.
you.
It's like Agent Orange or
Exactly.
or something similar, Every base, you burn the feces. If you didn't have a porta-john, you used the barrel, 55-gallon drum, poured diesel in it, and you're burning it. That's as long as I could remember. before my time, my grandfather, you know, that's what they did. All of our trash. And by the time I got over there in 2003, we invaded, right? And then in 2005, when I was finally deployed, got over there in 2006, they burned everything, plastics, you know, even before we got there, I'm sure they burned a lot of their
Human
trash.
waste.
But the human waste, computers, TVs, all the gases that were leaked, everything that we had, we took over from Merez East. We took to Merez West, which was up a hill, and everything that was burned would come down into the valley that we were in. We were in a low point, which doesn't make any sense for a military base at war, right? You want an advantage point, you know,
Right.
up a hill in the mountain, and the airfield was at the bottom in the valley, so near a dam in Mosul, and everything would settle, you know, the humidity, and the burn pit just settled with it. All the smoke and the chemicals, it was like smog, you know, constantly. And like I said, that's one thing that I remembered. We spoke before the show of arriving in Iraq. I associate low tide here in New Jersey with my first boots on the ground and being attacked by small arms fire. So smelling the bay at low tide will bring me right back to the first day in Iraq, almost every time. It's just I got to be in the right mind to be able to catch it, you know. My mind's got to be in a good place, or I could be gone for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, you know, mentally. Something that small.
We're going to take a short break, give
Okay.
us a chance to catch our breath. This song, in honor of the battle in Vietnam on November 8th, Chris Christopherson does the beginning.
On November 8, 1965, the 173rd Airborne Brigade on Operation Hump, War Zone D in Vietnam, were ambushed by over 1,200 VC. 48 American soldiers lost their lives. Severely wounded and risking his own life, Lawrence Joel, a medic, was the first living black man since the Spanish-American War to receive the United States Medal of Honor for saving so many lives in the midst of battle that day. Our friend Niles Harris, retired 25 years United States Army, the guy who gave Big Kenny his top hat, was one of the wounded who lived. This song is his story. Caught in the action of kill or be killed, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his brother.
Said goodbye to his mama as he left South Dakota to fight for the red, white, and blue. He was 19 and green with a new M16, just doing what he had to do. He was dropped in the jungle where the choppers would rumble with the smell of napalm in the air. Then the sergeant said, "Look up ahead." Like a dark evil cloud, 1,200 came down on him and 29 more. They fought for their lives, but most of them died in the 173rd Airborne. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. The 8th of November. 8th of November. Said goodbye to his mama as he left South Dakota to fight for the red, white, and blue. He was 19 and green with a new M16, just doing what he had to do.
And welcome back to Veterans Matter live stream broadcasts. Your host, Mike Merlino, and my guest, Vince Hamburg of the United States Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Enduring Freedom veteran. If you feel like calling in, want to touch base, 609-798-4475. Feel free to give us a call. Love to have you. Aunt Vicky said have a good show. So
Awesome.
We will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Vince, let's move. We talked a lot about the past, and of course, everything that you're going to go through between now and many years down the road
Sure.
is going to always be filtered through your service. It's just something.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything I do on a daily basis has some type of connection to my service, one way or another.
Now, I heard that you're doing quite well today as far as your relationship. You found a very lovely woman.
Beautiful, you know, in every way. Yeah, it's amazing, and that honestly, she serves daily with me. You know, with my struggles. She hasn't left. You know, I've told her to get out. I've told her to leave. I told her I'm going to the bar. I've done a lot of things, you know, that weren't nice, and she's still by my side, making sure, you know, that I'm taken care of. One way, you know, we get our arguments, and most of them are probably me from misunderstanding between articulation of words or my understanding.
Right.
There's a lot of struggle, you know, even though, you know, I'm being successful, I believe, and it looks like from the outside, every day I could be right back where I was in prison, you know, in a snap.
Right. And to have somebody right by your side who understands what you've been through.
Sure.
It's a very it's a fragile existence sometimes for our veterans who been in war zones, have been injured, have you know, go through some horrible operations that never leaves you. It's always a part of your life. Let me ask you a question,
Sure.
Vince. You've been through a lot. Would you do it again?
Yes, I would love to. You know, it's something that's not for everybody. And I don't think, you know, once you do it, if you have a love for it, you know, whether it's the service, doesn't matter if you're a cook, doesn't matter if you're military police or a truck driver or infantry, you know, I'm sure if you ask them, they'd say different things. But, you know, once you do it, once you serve, and if you're built for it, you'll do it again in a heartbeat. My grandfather, Korea, Right now, let me get those SMBs, like, let me get at it again. And how old is he, ready to drop what he could. And I believe every part of him would do it. It doesn't matter how old you are. Until I'm in my grave, if they called me up right now and said, I need you to do this mission, it doesn't matter. I would do it. I think I would, because that's where I feel at home.
It's amazing, and I can actually say unequivocally that I've been doing this for close to 14 years, and every single veteran I ever asked that question to
Sure.
never hesitated in their response that they would serve their country again.
Sure.
And I've had some people that have gone through some horrible things, like yourself, and your life was changed because of your service.
Yeah.
But one thing I could say, Vince, is that every single Veterans Day is for you, and
Sure.
I will forever be grateful for what you did, because every single freedom and every liberty that I and my family enjoys,
Me
your
too.
sacrifices.
Today, I'm with you. I don't think, I would do what I could to keep serving. Unfortunately, in 2013, I was unable to re-enlist. I knew that in 2011, after I got my disability rating from the VA, that I would need to get neck surgery before they would let me re-enlist. And I was like, no, I'm not letting any military doctors, I give them lots of credit, but if I have choice, I want to choose. And that's when I chose, okay, let me get out. I'll get my surgeries that I need, and then I'll be healthy, and I'll re-enlist. What do I need, a year, maybe 2? And, well, what happened after that. I started self-medicating. The surgeries never came, and I never followed up with the surgeries, and things snowballed and got worse and
Right.
worse. So, but I wouldn't take away any of that, honestly, Mike, because I can't say that I'm happy with where I'm at today. There's a lot more that needs to be done. I still need growing in myself, interpersonally, and with my family. Reconnection of old friends that I pushed off because of addiction or whatever I was dealing with at the time. But I wouldn't take away any of the past, because that built who I am today. Even the struggles, everything I saw in Iraq, everything I saw when I was home, whether it was in the service or on a base, it's built me who I am today.
Vince, let me ask something. Are you involved at all with any of the local veteran service organizations?
I'm not. I do the Veterans Day event in Hamilton. I'm not officially a part of the VFW. I do want to be a life member. When I was working, it was hard to get a schedule that would allow me to do any events with the VFW, but I am a life member of the Hamilton Chapter 66 DAV. I'm not an active member. I because of my old work schedules, I couldn't make the meetings. I couldn't make events that they did, which was seldom. But, as I'm maturing as a veteran, as a civilian, I want to be more involved.
It's funny. I never served in the military. My dad was a decorated World War II veteran. My brother, a Vietnam vet. I lost my hearing just out of high school, so
Sure.
I couldn't get in if I wanted to. But I have been able to, thankfully, through my dad's service. I belonged to the American Legion Post 352 in Summers Point.
Yes.
Through the Sons, and through that, I joined the Legion Riders.
Yes.
I've actually worked my way. I was 7 years as a vice president, became president for 3 years. Now today, Tommy Dixon is our president, does a great job.
Sure.
I would like you to think about it, but our post over in Summers Point,
Okay.
it's a lot different than your normal veteran service organization. It isn't a bunch of guys sitting around telling war stories. We probably do more for our local veterans than any VSO in the area.
I see everything that you do. I don't comment, I don't post, I don't do anything, but I watch, I observe, I listen, and what you do with Legion Riders and your post. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know, I've been blessed. I really have. And when I was younger, you know, coming out of high school in the early 70s, you know, the Vietnam War was winding down. There was so much propaganda during that time that turned people against our veterans.
Oh, yes.
During that era. And so it was a dark time in our country as far as patriotism. Maybe, you know, I joined the fire department. I was in the casino business.
Sure.
But I would say maybe 82, 83, I started doing sideline photography.
Okay.
And locker room interviews up at the Vet and the Link. And
Awesome.
yeah, it was a really cool time.
That's a great
And
experience.
I thought that our athletes were the greatest thing. Just worshipped our athletes. And then it was funny. I was at work one day, a beautiful day, September 11th, 2001.
Okay.
When I got a call from home. Mike, you're not going to believe this, but a plane actually flew into the Trade Center. And I was like, really? Was it an airliner or a private jet? She said, no, it looked like an airliner.
Yeah.
And while I was on the phone with her, she says, oh, my God, a second one.
And then, you
And
know.
I said, I'll be home. I hung up. I knew there was no doubt in my mind that we were at war.
Sure. I knew right away, too. And I was 18.
And it changed me. All of a sudden, I realized that our heroes weren't the men between the white lines.
Sure.
You know? And I made it a vow to help our veterans from that point on. And I was very lucky. I joined Rolling Thunder, whose mission was POW, MIA awareness.
Okay.
Luckily, we formed a Legion Rider chapter at our post.
Yes, awesome.
And it's been a great existence. But the best part is seeing you young veterans get involved to the point of, was one of the things I realized with our Vietnam vets.
Okay.
They were very apprehensive of going to the Vietnam Wall. It was
Sure.
It was just an experience they thought they could never get over.
Of course.
But the healing I've seen has been tremendous.
From that, going to the
Going to
wall
that
and
wall.
having
And-
just
and-
this, something as simple as this, Mike, like I might have said off the mic, was just this alone, speaking here on the radio with you, is almost like therapy. You know, I'm talking to a family, you know, without faces on the other side of the mic.
Right.
You know, and that's therapeutic.
Well, I'm sure you might have family out there listening or friends listening and saying, man, I can't believe that's what he went through.
Yeah, you know, a portion. There's no book or even a movie. I've watched tons. I've read tons. I had 5 years to sit there and read books, and you know, for me, I get chills reading the book, especially when there's a scenario or situation that another veteran's writing about that I could say, I lived through that too, and you know, when you shut down and isolate like I do so often, even today, you know, I'll sit in my room and I just ponder on who knows what. You know, a lot of regret and grief that I go through, but there's nothing that these books or movies that you could watch or hear, you know, from veteran to veteran, you might understand, but from, let's say, my son, if you were to watch a movie, he won't get the same feeling from that movie that I do. You know, so it's an eye-opener if you pay attention to it for more than entertainment. If you want to learn something, some of these movies and books can teach you something, but you have to be open to it, you know. And I got a lot from it, me personally as a veteran, and from this. It's but for a civilian, my wife, to watch the same movie, she might feel completely different about that movie than I do, you know. But it can give you a good understanding if you pay attention. If you,
Right.
but otherwise, it's just for entertainment value. You know, I couldn't put into words what me or any other veteran had gone through. You know, even if they were sitting in the right seat next to me, I couldn't tell you what his perspective was in the same incident or altercation, you know. And what's a big eye opener to that is even today, body cam footage compared to surveillance on the corner of a block in Philadelphia. You got two different perspectives, you know, and it may look like two different things. So it's kind of, for me, it's just another day, and I don't know. I get one day at a time, you know.
Well, you know, it was about 8 years ago where I was doing this show. United States Marine veteran of the Korean War sat there and told me, and Commander Bill Butler was co-hosting at the time. He told us the story about coming out of in the mountains, walking 20 miles in freezing temperatures back to his village where his unit was housed. And when he got there, he took his boots off and the soles of his feet came off.
To stay with his boots.
That was your grandfather.
Yeah.
And I get goosebumps thinking about that service and what he gave up for his country. And
God bless him. He's been through
carried
so
on
much.
that same desire to serve. And Vince, I'm just so thankful that you took this time out today to participate in this show.
I'm
because
thankful
I'm
too.
sure if some young guys were to listen to this, and like I say it all the time, go to our website, veteransmatternj.com, and the very last show that you'll see there is what we did today. And I'm sure that there's a lot you can get out of it. And
of course. You know, just for me reading books, because I didn't pick up a book unless it had something to do with the military, you know, before my service, during my service, and after. You know, could you imagine my grades in high school? If it didn't have anything to do with the service, I didn't care for it. But I got more from reading or speaking to other veterans than I did from any VA visit, you know.
Wow.
So if you get the opportunity to check out a show with this show, or just speak to another veteran and open up a little bit. You know, I was resistant for a long time, like I told you. You know, I was nervous about the show from the first time you invited me, but until now, it's kind of like, wow, like I could have been benefiting from this a long time ago. Yeah. You know, but if it reaches one person and it helps out, you know, I'm grateful.
Well, earlier in the week when you answered me and said, yes, I'll be there, it was a great moment for me because it's been a while since we first talked.
Of course.
You know,
that's
so,
right. Well, I think the last time that we were crossed paths was at a barbecue. You know, it was the Merlino Barbecue Summer Bash that you have every year, correct? You know, so that was quite some time ago.
Well, you know, your family, you're welcome.
I appreciate that.
I know, well, Caitlin and Alex.
Sure.
You know, and Alex.
Also service families.
Right. Well, you know, Alex's husband is a Coast Guard
Coastie,
vet,
yeah.
And he's stationed down in Jacksonville and watches our show religiously. So
as he should.
Hopefully,
good.
Alex catches this, and I'm sure that they're proud of what you've accomplished and where you've been and where you come to. But still, as you've mentioned, a little journey to go.
Lots of work to go. And like you said, I have multiple surgeries left. I couldn't tell you how many right now. It's just speculation that, okay, if this corrects everything, then we could stop. But at this point, it looks like at least 2 more surgeries on my back. Hopefully no more in my neck. Obviously, I have some issues with my arms still, but and everybody's got issues with their knees and ankles, but that's just gonna have to wait. But yeah, it's a road. I think I get so far ahead, and then I feel like I take 20 steps back. There's days that, you know, I don't want to get out of bed, and I dwell on some of the things in the past.
Right.
But that doesn't get me anywhere, really. What really motivates me is the kids and my wife.
Right.
You know, at this point. and there's I can't stress enough, I still have lots of work to do. I can go home and have a bad night, you know. And I do my best to make sure that I'm thorough and consistent with
Right.
my attitude, but I learned from my wife that I'm not. You know, in my eyes, I feel like,
Right.
you know, it's just one constant, Vince. But when I listen, when I actually take the time and listen to friends or family, there's still more work. You know, I don't think it'll ever be done. If you ask my grandfather tomorrow on the show, I believe there's still work.
Right.
And we'll never say we're not okay.
Well, you know, hopefully in the future you get an opportunity to to listen to the show. If you hear something
Yes.
that
Yes.
strikes you and you want to call in and comment, you're free to do that.
Sure. I'm grateful for that. It's not. It's a service to veterans, and I think I could speak for a lot of them. The ones that don't hear this show would be grateful. You know, just to have that interconnect. You know, that maybe not call in and say anything or even be on the show, but to know that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
When I was away in prison, like I really felt alone. At one point, I wanted that. You know, I'd rather be alone than bring anybody else down this road that I was headed. You know, so I cut family off. I stopped talking to friends. I spent most nights at the bar, you know, where it was okay, you know, until I broke out in handcuffs, lost my license 4 times, you know. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can, what do I want to say? They can relate to that. A lot of the books that I've read, I haven't read a lot of books on the Vietnam War, but I've read a lot about OEF and OIF because that's what I lived
Right.
through. But don't get me wrong, I do go back into older wars. But the connection that I felt just from reading a book was, because that's what I had for therapy while I was away in prison. They don't offer anything for veterans while you're gone. To be honest
Right.
with you, there's no programs, there's no special treatment or any of that. You're a prisoner just like everybody else. So whatever you read, it may be something new, but there should be more. Those books really got me through, honestly.
I'm going to play this song, actually written and sung by a very good friend of mine, Vietnam veteran.
With your name forever on the wall, now at least we all have a place to go. We can pray and pay respects with them, the loved ones and the friends we've all come to know. There's been so many questions left unanswered since my youth. I wonder if we'll ever know the truth. Torn between holding on and letting go. It's got to be the hardest thing to do. Mom and I have cried our tears. We've been searching all these years for you. If we only knew. So much doubt we live with every day. Such a heavy price to pay. Somehow we endure. We accept all the pain we feel from a wound that never heals until we know for sure. Gone but not forgotten, no matter where you are. Time won't ever take you from our hearts. Torn between holding on and letting go. It's It's got to be the hardest thing to do. Mama and I have cried our tears. We've been searching all these years for you. If we only knew. If we only knew.
Welcome back to Veterans Matter. That was Billy Terrell, United States Army and Vietnam veteran. Vince, there's one thing I want to give you. A very good friend of mine, Lieutenant Sam Consul, wrote a book called Service and Sacrifice. He was,
Okay.
Memoirs of his time, Operation Iraqi Freedom. I think you'll really enjoy it. Great man, and he's now involved in a it's called Vet to Vet Service Dogs in Pennsylvania.
I'm familiar with the program.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's great. I look forward to reading it, and then thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
You know, I mean, there's the man that was there.
That's right, and I recognize it's engineers. I recognize this image. I just can't link it to a name or a number right now. But is it the engineers of the Army National Guard engineers, and the combat action? You know, so I know that. I know all about it. I can't wait. I'm sure it's a page turner. I can't wait. Thank you.
The other night, actually Wednesday, November 16th, my wife and I attended Crime Stoppers of Atlantic County dinner on that committee. And it was interesting to me for a number of reasons. They honored Donna Higbee, who's retired police chief from Galloway, and another committee member, Amy DeFeo Barbella.
Okay.
And you go through this booklet. There's an ad in here by Harry Hurley, who of Hurley in the Morning fame, WPG Talk Radio.
Okay. Yep.
And every year Harry does a golf outing and a dinner for, and all the money goes to charities. And just seeing everything that Harry does, he does a lot for the Legion Riders. He's always 2 or 3 times a year.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Giving us really nice, not just, I don't call them donations because they're more like a
contribution,
an honorarium.
Oh, okay.
You know, he loves veterans. His dad was a World War II veteran, and I just want to thank Harry for all he does for veterans, especially what he does.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you.
For our Legion Riders. Really unbelievable. You know, usually when we're winding down, I like to ask my guest a question. Vint, if you were to be at Oakcrest High School graduation ceremony, you were asked to say a couple words to the students about whether the military was a good place to go if you weren't college material.
Sure.
What would you tell our students?
Of course, you know, by all means, you know, thank you. If that's something that you were considering, the love that you need to do it has to be there. Like we were talking last night briefly with my son and my stepson, and we were talking about courage and how to be brave and bravado and you know where that all comes from. And I said those are the things you need, because he was asking me questions about a video game. I said, well, all those things that might, you know, be in that video game that you might feel at that moment, so you got to take those and harness them and use them. in battle. If you were to go to battle, not all service members see battle or have to do that. There's lots of jobs, but carefully pick. Some people might say trust your recruiter, but I'd say do your own research. But I would encourage it by all means because of the discipline that you get from it. These days, I think it's all watered down at home. Parents, I learn every day how to be a parent, so there's no book, but it starts at home. So if you have the option and you're not for college, do your research. But if you were to ask me my opinion, I'd say Air Force all day. Ask any Army guy, Air Force, Navy. I wasn't a swimmer, so it would have been the Air Force.
It's funny. Back just 2 short years ago, 2020, I threw my hat in the ring for a run of the Egg Harbor Township School Board.
Okay.
And one of the things that I realized during the time I was running, was one of the questions asked of me by the Home School Association was what was my reason for wanting to run. Well, it was a couple of reasons. One of, and I don't mind talking about this on air, that at the time I didn't want to see boys in the girls' locker rooms or the girls' bathrooms.
Sure.
But the other thing was, I come to realize that our high schools today were just pushing everybody to college, and not everybody's college material.
Yeah, I saw
and
that too.
They don't let recruiters into school.
No.
It's crazy. And they don't push our kids who aren't college material to get into the trades. It's a great opportunity. There's just some of the people in the trades make more money than our college graduates.
Sure. As an electrician, I was capable of making well over $100,000 a year. But they don't teach you that in school. They don't say, "Oh, you pursue this or pursue that."
And it's crazy. The military. Of course, it's not for everybody, but the post 9/11 GI Bill is tremendous.
It's amazing. I have the ability because I'm 100%. I have vocational rehabilitation, which I need to use because I can no longer do my job now as an electrician. So I have to find something that's more suitable.
How did you ever get into electrician from truck driving in the military?
As a kid. It was just something I loved to do, working on cars, car audio, car stereos. I worked at Circuit City for a short amount of time while it was still open here at the Shore Mall, installing car radios, just a fun hobby, and what I learned from doing the hobby, I applied in residential and commercial and industrial electric. Wow. So it's different, but the theories are similar, so that's what interests me. I liked it. It takes a lot of discipline, it's not something that, electrician can just throw the wires there and be done. You could burn something down. So you have to pay attention to detail. Military enhanced my electrical capabilities. Let me tell you that. So the strictness and the discipline that you get in the military, I applied to my electrical work. Some call it OCD. I just call it discipline, So it really, I think, enhanced my ability to work as an electrician. You need that thoroughness and the things that they teach you in the military, in electrical work. Or you can kill somebody or burn something down. It's a liability,
Right. Let me ask you something, Vince. I'm sure because of your service and the injuries and your 100% service connected, you're on TRICARE, correct?
I'm not on TRICARE. No. So I if I was forced out or medically retired, I had TRICARE for 6 months after my service, off active duty, and in the reserves, I had TRICARE for those 2 years during IRR. But after that, TRICARE fell off, and the VA picked me up. But VA's not insurance. It's coverage for my disabilities. That's service connected, as you said. So when I walked in there and said, VA's my only insurance, they corrected me quick. They said, VA is not insurance.
Right.
So I do have my own insurance. But What were we getting at? I'm sorry.
Just that I was just asking whether or not, because of your service connection disabilities, you would qualify for TRICARE.
I might. I know we have different options once you're 100% for the family coverage, and
Okay.
I am not completely thoroughly familiar with everything once you get to be 100% because it's something recently that had changed for me. So I haven't really looked into all of it yet, being as though that now I cannot work because of my disabilities. And I'll be looking forward to seeing what programs I qualify for, and I'm going to make use of it for sure.
If you go over to Atlantic City, I think we talked before the show, you were going to
Yes.
maybe meet with Alicia.
Yes,
Or,
and that's set
great
for
people
Wednesday, I believe. And I'm excited to go and learn what my wife is going to go with me because she helps me with a lot of the understanding.
right.
There's a lot of stuff I have problems with processing some information, whether it be written or dates. My memory's foggy, and I think a lot of it's medication. I feel like I should remember things good,
Right.
but I've been I don't know what you want to call it, but I anything the doctors want to try on me to help me feel normal, I've been willing to try.
It's great that you recognize it because a lot of people are, even as I get older, you get into denial
Yeah.
about things, But let's face it, a lot of the things you've been through definitely affect certain areas of our psyche that we don't have control over that.
While we're on the topic, if you don't mind,
No, go ahead.
there's a lot of things that I'm no doctor, but I can't blame it all on medicine. But after studying the brain, I started to go to school when I first came home from prison to try to go for social work to help veterans, maybe be employed by the VA eventually, leave. I wanted options, and school wasn't for me. It really wasn't. So I had to back off of that. But when it comes to memory, there's portions of my service that I completely forget about. There's portions that I'll talk to other battle buddies of mine, and we'll remember similar situations or different parts of our tour, but won't remember the same instances that we were both at, let's say. I believe that, and even as a child, there's traumatic incidences in my life that I can't remember thoroughly. And I believe that's a protection that our own psyche does to
Right.
block off, to forget, So I try to write things down, but my wife also, she's been such a big help with everything, like it's okay, it's normal. I'm my biggest critic. But I just wanted to touch base. Like, I think with PTSD, there's certain things that have come up to the forefront of your memory and never leave you, and I could go through those right now if I really wanted to. I'll say that for another day. But there's lots of events. There's blocks, months at a time that were pretty bad, and I couldn't tell you specifics of the situation. They're gone. They're gone. I can't even. I could make up something. Other than that, I'd have to look at pictures to jog my memory.
Yeah. In a few weeks, I just let my listeners know that next week there will not be a show because of the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yes, thank you.
But that next week, I'm pretty sure I could have Pat Carney on the show. Pat is no longer a veteran outreach specialist. He deals strictly with veteran suicide. And we're also trying to get Dave Brimmer on. Dave was a veterans outreach specialist up in Ocean County.
Okay.
And he's with they're doing something new. It's called VHA Innovators Network. And supposed to be a really great program for veterans and their families. Takes a ground-up approach by using the first-hand knowledge of frontline employees to identify some of VA's greatest challenges. And I think what you need when you start doing things like this, you need people like yourself to get involved to help
agree.
them. You know,
I
so they
agree.
could help you.
Yeah, it's one hand washes the other. If you really don't know what you're dealing with, like when you come into Iraq, you sit with the unit that you're replacing for about a week or two. They call it left seat, right seat ride. You watch me for a week, I'll watch you for a week, and if you're doing it right, then we'll be on our way. And that's the best way to learn. It's what I learn anyway.
Right.
So how could you know about things that you're trying to address if you don't have that firsthand knowledge? And where else could you get it except from a veteran? With the ones that are dealing with the issues daily or weekly or monthly, trying to get in or get help or where to go next or what's available to them. This is what I got when I came home from Iraq was a book.
Right.
Here you go. If you need help, here's a 1-800 number. And then I was holding a 6-month-old, lost. What am I going to do now?
It's crazy. I always, there were a couple things I always thought would be great. One is as soon as a vet, as soon as you separate from service, they should sign you up to the VA. It shouldn't be
almost automatic.
You know?
It's just a transfer of paperwork. This is your job now.
But it's funny, they don't always do it. As a matter of fact, we had a guy got in touch with the Legion Riders and needed a ramp. He was a World War II veteran.
Okay, yeah.
And Tommy Dixon and a couple of the guys got together, and they found a ramp. Pricey, so
Sure.
I went online and through Alicia Kagan.
Okay, yeah.
In Atlantic City, come to find out after all this, there's 2 grants available. One if you're 100%, and another if just age related.
Okay.
So we figure, well, the guy's a World War II vet. He's 90-some years old. And
Yeah.
There couldn't be a problem, right? Well, he never signed up for the VA.
Really?
Ever. So they denied helping him, and they said, we'll sign you up, but it's going to take you a year in the system before you could qualify
For this
grants.
benefit, yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, what's that you're going to do? You're going to make, do I have to, what do they call probationary period? Like, I might get up and leave?
Well, that's one of the great things about the Legion Riders. They were able to provide them with a ramp.
Awesome.
A World War II veteran. The guy, part of the greatest generation,
Sure.
is able to get around now.
That's amazing. Thank you for helping. That's great. It's Mike, I wish there was more people out there like you that would be willing to go, to any measure to make sure that he doesn't go without. Like, he of all shouldn't be without a ramp that's needed. It's just one time. I'm sure there's lots of times, but I appreciate it. I know that it's needed. I needed it. And it's the getting over that hump where you ask. They teach you a lot of things. There's a lot of pride in service members, and just men in general. Pride and ego. You said if there was one thing I would leave this show with, it would be don't be too prideful to ask for help. I struggle with this every day. Just even something, if I have to pick something up, my wife or a kid, hey, can you grab that? I'll get my cane. I'll get it myself. And stop being so stubborn, and maybe pick up the phone and call an old friend or reach out, to you, the show. Stop by the VA. If the doors are open, they won't turn you away. You could talk to somebody, and I noticed that recently.
Right, and we do have a lot of resources available. A good friend of yours, matter of fact, Dave Louderback,
yeah.
Cape May County Division of Veteran Services.
I know Dave Louderback. Yep.
That's what we're here for, to help our veterans. And if they'd like to come on the show and tell their story, we'd love to have them. Vinny, it's been great having you here.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I appreciate the invite, and I said earlier, it's done a lot for me. I filled up the time block. That's good, and I want to, but it's I might not know how well this helps me until a week from now.
Well, also you get an opportunity to thank your wife for
everything. Tonight, tomorrow. Everything in the
past. They
past.
sacrifice so much, our veterans' families. People have no idea. But there are some things going on. I don't know if you're aware of them, but Atlantic Prevention Resources.
Okay.
My cousin Kathy works for them. And they have a lot of things for veterans and their families.
Okay.
A time to get together.
Sure.
And, if I can think of it, I'll get my cousin to drop me off some paperwork and get it
Awesome.
to you. Because
That would be great.
our families, our veterans' families suffer so much. And a lot of times we forget
About that.
So, as we wind down here, I want to thank you, Vin,
Thank you.
for being here, telling your story.
Sure. I hope that I could come back again. And
you're welcome.
There's, like I told you earlier, there's books that I could have written just about small portions of my life.
Right.
But I could tell you that a lot of it is interconnected with the service and how that affected me. But I would be, ecstatic to be able to come back, hopefully with another veteran.
You're very welcome. Love to have you. And just want to remind our listeners that next week we will not be on the air because of the Thanksgiving holiday. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And I know that the American Legion Post 352 are bringing the Coast Guard up.
Amazing.
And doing a Thanksgiving dinner there. So
that's great. That's
it
good to
is.
give back.
They do it every year, and it's really a really great thing. And one of the things we leave at the end of every show, we tell our listeners, if you love your freedom, thank a vet.
That's right.